Right, changing spark plugs or checking spark plugs on your Sport Glide and Softails. Let's get into it.
RevelatorAlf.
Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. Hope you enjoying the channel and the series of videos. Please like, share, subscribe, leave those comments below. Check out the website RevelatorAlf.com. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the spark plugs, on your Sport Glide or your Softail. Now, running the M8 engines, as we know, and you would think, oh, spark plugs, just an easy job, isn't it? And actually, if you look on the left-hand side, you got the spark plug right there, one there, off the front cylinder, and you got the spark plug there, off the rear cylinder, all fine and dandy. However, there are more than two spark plugs, as you well know. So if we go on the other side of the bike, we'll see where those spark plugs are. So now we're on the right side of the bike, and look, the spark plug is actually right in there. That is actually really difficult to get to, and same on this side. Guess what's in the way? The tank. Right, so the proper way to do this, just to check your spark plugs, you have to remove the tank. Now hold on a minute, before you remove the tank, you've got to remove the seat. Then you remove the tank. No, actually, hold on. Before you do that, you've got to remove the instrument module. Okay. Right, then you remove the tank. No, before you do that, you've got to purge your fuel lines. Then you remove the tank. Yeah, but then you've got to make sure all the connectors, all the Schrader valve for the fuel line is disconnected as well. Okay, this isn't major mechanics, but it is a bit of a faff just to check your spark plugs or change your spark plugs, and it may put a lot of people off from doing the simplest of tasks, as in just changing spark plugs, because you've got to do all this other stuff. Bit of a poor design there in my thinking, but let me know what you think. Right, let's get back on the other side. Okay, so what you're looking at is one of these. That's right, so you've taken off the seat and the tank, you've purged your fuel lines and everything's fine and dandy. Now time to get in there. Well, one of the first things you need to do as well, before you start tinkering around with anything, before you even start taking the tank off, you've got to take off the left side electrical cover there and disconnect the main fuse, because otherwise things can go pop. You don't want that. Okay, so the next thing is that you're going to get onto your spark plugs. Actually, so you need to take your plugs off here, and they can be a little bit tricky as well. So you need to give them a good old pinch and pull them off gingerly there, I would say. The next thing to do is actually get the spark plug out. So you're going to need one of these. That's right, it's a wrench, and it's a 10mm spark plug puller or socket, whatever. So that's it. You do that and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, all good. Now, some of you might think, okay, well, I'm just going to replace one spark plug. Actually, I would never do that. If you're going to replace any spark plugs, replace them as a set. It's much better, because you're starting off again at the same datum. Okay, so once you've got your spark plug pulled, you're looking at it like this, and you're looking at this bit here, right at the end here, and you're seeing what kind of condition it's in. Now, basically, if it's worn black and sort of shiny, as this is here, it could be sort of pistons, worn pistons, piston rings, it could be worn valves, it could be worn valve guides. You could have a weak battery here and faulty ignition system. There's lots of different reasons why this could be all blacked up anyway. So whilst the spark plug may just need a little clean and everything, you might have other issues going on. Now, if it's sort of dry, black and sooty and fluffy, then basically your fuel mixture is too rich. Now, if your insulator is sort of light brown and it's got cracks in it as well, let's say, you basically got a mixture that's too lean. You've got a hot running engine, the valve's not seating, and you've got improper ignition timing. But what you're really looking for is something that is white, grey, or tan, and it's powdery. That means that you've got a balanced combustion throughout the cylinders. You just clean off the deposits at regular intervals, and there you go. Right, so what do you need to do? Well, basically, you just get a little brush on there. You give it a good old clean, and then you're checking the gap right there, right at the top there. And that's what you need to make sure is the right distance. Now, what you're checking the distance here is basically in millimeters, you're checking for 0.8 to 0.9 millimeters, and for inches, it's 0.031 to 0.035 inches. Well, how are you going to measure that? Okay, next thing, you need one of these. These are a set of feeler gauges, yeah. And they're thin strips of metal like that, and they're all at predetermined widths. So you just slide it in there into the gap until it just slides in neatly. You can see it's touching both sides. That's the correct distance. If it's too wide, then you need to tap it down a bit. If it's too narrow, then you're going to need to lever it up a little bit as well. Just make sure it's all clean, and that spark plug should be good to go. And if you test it on the side of the cylinder, just fire up the ignition, you should see it igniting as well. So that should be fine. Now, you could check all four, of course. Obviously, you have to check off the tank and everything. But if you're just wanting to test the cylinder, what you can do, instead of having to go through all that rigmarole, you can just test one spark plug per cylinder. Just test the left-hand side, because they're essentially going to be exactly the same, or near enough exactly the same, for both spark plugs per cylinder. So if you think there might be a problem with the cylinder, let's say for example, check one spark plug, check your tuning after you've had some retuning, remapping, something like that. Is the spark plug, is the combustion running too hot, too lean, whatever, too rich? Check that spark plug just on the one side, and you'll be able to check the tuning based upon that. Now, obviously, before removing any spark plugs, you want to make sure that the area is clear there and clean. You don't want to be undoing a spark plug and letting any debris get in there, or any water or anything like that. So make sure it's all clean and dry. So the next thing then is when you want to put it back. So you get your socket wrench, and you just put the spark plug back in there. Make sure you're seating it properly. Make sure you're just winding it in or threading it in with your fingers first of all. Make sure it's going in properly. Then go in with your socket wrench. Okay. The other thing that you need then is a torque wrench as well, because you need to torque these down properly. Now, many of you will be thinking, what, I really have to do that? I really have to torque it down? Well, if you want to do it per the letter, per the book, yes. If not, that's the risk that you take. I mean, but there are issues with, escaping gases, all that kind of stuff. Or you may over tighten it, which may cause issues as well. And that's something you don't want to do. So anyway, let's get on to the torque settings. Okay, so the torque settings are for the spark plugs are 10 to 15 Newton meters, or it's 89 to 133 inch-pounds. So you do that with a spark plug wrench, and then torque it down with a torque wrench. Now, then you just put everything back together, bish, bash, bosh. You put the fuel tank back on, connect everything back up. All the fuel lines, instrument module goes back on, seat goes back on, put the fuse back in, just fire it up, or then charge all the fuel lines, then you'll get to fire it up, and away you go. Now, you may want to do this periodically. You may want to check after a couple of thousand miles after a service. Maybe you want to check it after 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles after you've done an upstage or something like that. But essentially, that's what you're checking the spark plugs for. You see, really checking the condition of the engine. If it's running too rich, if it's running too lean, if you've done some upstaging, if there's any problem with it at all. Anyway, well, I hope you found this useful. I'd say it should be a lot easier than it actually is, especially for the home mechanic or somebody who's not a mechanic or at all, or not mechanically minded. This should be a job that's a lot easier, so shame on you there, Harley. But there we go. Please like, share, subscribe, leave those comments below, and check out the website RevelatorAlf.com, and I'll catch you again very soon. Bye.
RevelatorAlf.